New York City just elected a socialist mayor, and it took less than 30 days for his policies to turn deadly.
It's a harsh reality check. We're looking at a city that, traded practical governance for high-minded ideology, and the result is tragedy.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today is January 31st, 2026. If you're anywhere in the Northeast, you know we are in a brutal deep freeze. But in New York City, the cold isn't the whole story. The story is about who's left out in it.
That's right. At least 8 to 10 people, maybe more, have frozen to death on the streets of New York in just the last few days. And while the weather is the weapon, the sources we have today suggest the policy was the trigger.
And we're talking about the new mayor, Zohran Mamdani. He's been in office for, exactly 1 month. And he came up with some very big, very specific promises about the homeless crisis.
Promises that looked, let's say, very different on paper than they did during a blizzard. He promised to stop the sweeps. That's when police clear out homeless encampments. He ordered the NYPD to stand down.
He basically said to leave them alone.
Yes. Unless there's a medical emergency happening right this second, leave them be.
And then the temperature dropped to near zero.
Exactly, and bodies were found in the snow. But it gets even more complicated. You have the Trump administration offering federal aid through Homeland Security. They said, we have help ready.
And Governor Kathy Hochul rejected it.
She did.
Wait, she turned down help during a deadly storm. Why?
Because she demanded that ICE immigration and customs enforcement stop working in the area first. It was a political standoff. The governor and the mayor, they put politics above getting resources to freezing people.
So is this what socialism looks like in practice? You have these high ideals, a lot of talk about compassion, but then you have frozen bodies and a government that just refuses to enforce basic order.
That is the question we need to answer today. We've got a stack of sources here, reports from the Manhattan Institute, election data, news updates from the last 24 hours. We're going to unpack the mandate Mamdani thinks he has, the policies that led to these deaths, and the massive bill he wants taxpayers to foot.
Let's start with the election itself, because ever since November, we've been hearing this was a historic shift, that New York City went red, socialist red, not Republican red. But looking at these numbers, I'm not sure New Yorkers actually signed up for this.
The numbers tell a very, very different story. If you look at the data, Mamdani is on incredibly shaky ground. He won with 50.4% of the vote.
That is razor thin. That's essentially a coin flip.
It is barely a majority. I mean, compare that to the Democrats who came before him. Bill de Blasio, he won with 73%.
Right.
Even Eric Adams, who had plenty of critics, won with 67%. Mamdani just scraped by.
So practically half the city voted against him. That doesn't exactly sound like a revolution.
No, and here's the statistic that really jumps out. This wasn't some massive blue wave or reaction against President Trump. Vice President Kamala Harris won New York City by a huge margin.
Okay.
Mamdani performed 36% worse than she did.
Wow. Wait, let's pause on that. 36% worse.
It's a massive gap. It means hundreds of thousands of people walked into the voting booth, they voted for Harris, and then they looked at the socialist mayor and said, no thanks.
So he essentially slipped in through the back door.
Precisely. He didn't get an anti-Trump bump. He won because the opposition was split, not because the city is in love with his ideas. This isn't a mandate. It's a warning. He has no political capital to burn, yet he is acting like he has a blank check.
And he spent that capital immediately on this homeless policy. Let's go back to the freeze. How does a city with the resources of New York let 10 people freeze to death in 2026?
It comes down to what they call a civilianized response. Mamdani campaigned on the idea that homelessness is strictly a housing problem. He doesn't see it as a mental health crisis or a drug addiction crisis.
He just thinks if you leave people alone until you can give them an apartment, that's the kind thing to do.
That's the ideology. But when it's 0 degrees outside, leaving someone alone seems like the cruelest thing you can do.
It's the tragic irony, right? When the storm hit, the police were ordered to limit their role. They could only act if someone was in immediate danger.
Right.
I have to ask, though, isn't sleeping on a sidewalk in a blizzard immediate danger? I mean, biology dictates that you will freeze.
You would think so. Any common sense person would. But the directive was interpreted to mean the police shouldn't intervene unless, there was a heart attack or an overdose happening right then. So they shifted responsibility to the Department of Homeless Services, DHS.
And were they ready? Was DHS equipped to handle this without police support?
Not at all. Sources say DHS was totally unprepared. They had no clear guidance from City Hall. So you had police stepping back, social workers who were overwhelmed, and no one taking charge, a vacuum of authority.
I read something in the notes about a confusion with phone numbers. This part seemed almost unbelievable.
This is a key detail. The mayor told people to call 311 if they saw homeless people in the cold. Now, you live here. What's 311 for?
311 is for non-emergencies. A pothole, loud music. It's not for life and death situations.
Exactly. Directing people to 311 signals this isn't a priority. It clogs the system with administrative tickets while people are literally freezing. They eventually had to reroute those calls to 911 because it got so bad, but valuable time was lost.
It sounds like they were trying to manage a disaster with an ideology instead of a plan. They wanted to prove their no police model worked, even if it meant risking lives.
And eventually, reality won. The city panic shifted. When the death toll started climbing, they involuntarily committed at least 3 people to get them out of the cold.
So Mamdani had to break his own promise.
He had to. He campaigned on no involuntary commitments. He said it was a violation of rights. But when people are dying, you can't just stand by. He had to break his promise to save face. But for those 8 or 10 people, it was too late. It just proves that this hands-off compassion, it actually kills people.
It's devastating. And it really shows the difference between a campaign slogan and actually governing. But while this is all unfolding, there's also a financial storm brewing. If the safety policy is failing, what about the economic plan? Because Mamdani wants to spend a fortune.
A fortune is putting it lightly. He has a billion-dollar wish list that taxpayers simply cannot afford. We're looking at spending that is just completely detached from fiscal reality.
Lay it out for us. What are the big ticket items?
The biggest is social housing. He wants to build 200,000 units of government-run housing. The price tag for that alone is $100 billion over 10 years.
$100 billion with a B.
Yes, that's $10 billion a year just for housing. Then you add in universal childcare, that's another $6 billion a year. Then he wants free buses for everyone, that's another $800 million a year.
Those numbers are just staggering.
When you add it all up, he needs $17 billion in new spending every single year. That's a 15% increase over the current city budget.
Okay, so where is that money supposed to come from? Can't you put that on a tab?
Well, his plan is the classic socialist playbook. Tax the rich. He wants to hike the personal income tax on the top 1% and increase corporate taxes.
But wait, can a mayor just do that? Can he just snap his fingers and raise taxes?
No, he can't. And that is the roadblock he is hitting at 100 miles per hour. He needs approval from New York State to raise those taxes. And Governor Hochul, who, remember, is already fighting with him, she opposes tax hikes.
Because she's worried about businesses leaving.
Exactly. She knows that if New York City raises taxes that much, companies and wealthy people will just move to Florida or Texas. The tax base would crumble. So she's blocking him.
So he has no way to pay for this. He has a $17 billion wish list and an empty wallet.
None. And it gets worse. Because of his refusal to cooperate with ICE, President Trump has threatened to cut federal funding to New York City. So he can't raise new money, and he might lose the money he already has.
Let me get this straight. He's run up a $17 billion credit card bill. The governor won't let him get a second job to pay for it. And the president is threatening to cancel his allowance.
That's a perfect analogy. He's promising free housing, free childcare, free buses, without the power or the money to deliver any of it. It's a budget fantasy.
And what happens when people realize the promises are empty?
Disappointment turns to anger very, very quickly. City workers start worrying about their pensions. Contractors wonder if they'll get paid. When the math doesn't work, everything starts to fall apart.
It really feels like he's alienating everyone. It's not just the rich taxpayers he's upsetting.
No, it's much deeper. This is where we see ideology over order. He's alienating the Jewish community and the police, 2 pillars of the city.
I saw that on day 1. He revoked some executive orders. What was that about?
This was his very first act in office. Former Mayor Eric Adams had orders that fought anti-Semitism and banned city boycotts of Israel. Mamdani got rid of those immediately.
Immediately, like before fixing the potholes.
Day 1, it was a priority. It sent a shockwave through the Jewish community. It angered Israeli officials. It signaled he's prioritizing a specific foreign policy stance over the unity of his own city.
Seems like a strange hill to die on for a local mayor. You're supposed to be fixing the subways, not conducting foreign policy.
It's performative.
Yeah.
But it has real consequences. And then there's the police. He talks about stripping their power, creating that Department of Community Safety.
Right, for $400 million.
Exactly. But here's the paradox, and this is where his own supporters are getting angry at him.
Oh, he do?
He appointed Jessica Tisch as police commissioner.
Wait, I know that name. She's definitely not a socialist.
Far from it. She's a billionaire heiress. She's known for conservative, tough policing. She loves technology, drones, surveillance. She is the absolute opposite of what his base wanted.
So he's stripping money from the police with one hand and hiring a tough-on-crime billionaire with the other. That makes no sense.
Yeah.
It's a sign of total confusion. He's trying to please everyone and pleasing no one. The socialists are furious about Tish. The conservatives are furious about the no-sweeps policy. It's chaos.
We are only 30 days in, and it feels like the wheels are already coming off.
It is chaos. You've got a divided city, a budget that's dead on arrival, a police force that doesn't know its own rules, and most tragically, bodies in the morgue because ideology mattered more than safety.
It really makes you wonder. It's easy to talk about compassion on a campaign poster, but when the snow falls and the budget is due, you need governance, not slogans.
That is the lesson here. Competence matters. Ideology is fine for a debate club, but when you're running a city of 8 million people, incompetence is dangerous.
So let's just bring this back to the listener. Why should someone in Queens or Staten Island or even someone watching from outside New York care about this?
Because New York City is often the testing ground. This is the Mamdani experiment. We're seeing what happens when you take these academic socialist theories and apply them to a real breathing city. If the result is bankruptcy and a breakdown of public order, that's a lesson every city in America needs to learn.
It's a warning flare for the rest of the country.
Exactly. And we have to ask, if this is how the administration handles a winter storm, which happens every single year, how will they handle a real crisis, a terror threat, a financial crash?
That is a scary thought, if they can't handle the weather.
Precisely. We've covered a lot. The narrow election win, the tragic failure during the freeze, the $17 billion budget hole, and the political chaos. It's a perfect storm of failures in just 4 weeks.
So here's the final thought I want to leave you with.
Yeah.
We're 1 month into a 4-year term. If Mamdani's version of kindness resulted in 10 deaths during his very first storm, what happens when the next crisis hits?
New York is a resilient city. It's survived a lot. But it might not survive 4 years of this experiment.
That's it for this deep dive. Stay warm, stay safe, and pay attention to who's running your city. We'll see you next time.